All right, now let me just preface this with saying that I did not hate the movie. I thought it was, quite honestly, the most average Marvel movie I've seen. You know, most of the Marvel movies are either normal to decent or just bad. You know, like Infinity War is genuinely a pretty good movie. And then you have something like Thor: The Dark World, which is bona fide, unbridled shit. And this is sort of in the middle, you know, like it's nothing offensive, it's nothing groundbreaking, it's nothing bad, it's nothing good. It is literally the definition of mediocre. And that's exactly why I didn't like it. Captain Marvel is, in theory, a pretty decent character. You know, she's a strong female lead, which is something that people who aren't fat, greasy comic book nerds, they're dying for those strong female characters. You know, Rey. Does she have a last name? I don't know. Rey from Star Wars, and Rose as well. Um, yeah, people didn't like Rose very much, but you know, female characters like that. Obviously, a lot of people think that women need more representation in modern media, which I could go on that tangent for hours, but I'm not going to do that. I'm here to talk about Captain Marvel. So, bottom line is, it wasn't bad. It wasn't good. So, anyway, I'm just going to give you my full thoughts on the film and sort of, you know, tell you all about it. So the movie starts with a genuinely touching and genuinely flattering opening logo. You know, so you have the normal Marvel Studios logo showing all of the different characters and it coming from the comic to the script to the screen. Except in Captain Marvel, it's showing, you know, still frames of Stan Lee, and instead of showing the Marvel Studios logo, it says "Thank you, Stan," and that was really touching. You know, that was really sweet. Um, and the Stan Lee cameo in this movie is pretty decent as well. But anyway, the movie starts. Captain Marvel, I could not. Carol, yeah, Carol, is on her home planet with a confusing name that I can't remember, uh, and she is with her boyfriend slash love interest, except not really a love interest because she's too strong of a female character to have a love interest. Boyfriend boy, and they are on a. I'll be honest with you, I kind of zoned out in the first 20 minutes of this movie because when I came into Captain Marvel, I was like, I'm only here for the Avengers Endgame tease that I know is in the credits. I don't give a shit about this movie, so I was kind of zoning out, you know. So I'll give you cliff notes of what I remember. So there was a subway train, and they were on the subway. It was like a space subway, and then she went to this giant AI supercomputer called the Supreme Intelligence, and she meets this person who she doesn't know, but the computer is supposed to dig into your brain and find the person who means the most to you. And that person who she doesn't know apparently means the most to her. So she talks to this person for a bit, and that person sort of tells her, you know, exposition. And so from there, Carol and her little band of compatriots, they all go to this freaky abandoned yellow planet to rescue one of their friends from the Skrull. Now the Skrull is a very interesting species of characters that I don't care about. They're like shape-shifting aliens that can transform into everything. So long as they see it first. I think that's the rule. They have to see it with their own eyes, and then they can transform into it. And Ben Mendelsohn plays one of these, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Ben Mendelsohn does, which I enjoyed him in Ready Player One and Rogue One as well. But his character in this movie was just kind of flat, to be honest. Like, oh, obviously he didn't have to have, you know, a big, sprawling character arc, but he wasn't a very decent character, and most of the time he was wearing this thick makeup to look like a freaky space alien, except it looked like makeup. It didn't look like, you know, it didn't look convincing in any way, shape, or form. You know, it's like I've seen better makeup in John Carpenter's The Thing. So, like, it was really not that impressive. There's a lot of aspects of this movie, actually, that are not very impressive. There's a lot of CG in the movie that is really bad for a Marvel movie. Like Infinity War, a lot of the CG, that movie is like 99% CGI, and I you can't tell for most of it. Like you can tell that Thanos is computer generated, but like it's really good. And granted, that movie had a budget of like $300 million. This movie has like half the budget that Infinity War did. But a lot of the CG in this, it looks like a PS4 game. You know, it doesn't look good in any way, shape, or form. Better than Black Panther. Black Panther looked like a PS2 game. So we're slowly going through the PlayStation generations, but a lot of the CG in this movie looked like a like a cinematic trailer for Uncharted 4 or something. You know, like it did not convince me in any way. And a lot of the CG with Captain Marvel was very uncanny valley and very strange. And I don't know how to feel about it, you know, because it's like obviously effort was put into it. You know, a lot of the textures are very detailed. Granted, I didn't see this on like a massive IMAX screen, but I did, you know, see it on a decent sized screen, and I could pick up most of the detail. And it was, you know, fairly well rendered. It just was not too good looking. It looked like a Marvel movie more from 2011, you know, like First Avenger sort of stuff. And granted, a lot of the green screen in First Avenger is really, really bad. And a lot of the environments are realistic in this movie. I love the production design. There's, you know, obviously the movie takes place in the 90s, so there's a lot of, you know, really cool 90s aesthetic there. And, you know, we're in spoiler territory now, so the Stan Lee cameo is Stan Lee reading the script to Mallrats. And that was really cool because, you know, I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. I don't like Tusk or Yoga Hosers. You know, a lot of his more recent work is kind of a little excessive. But a lot of his older stuff, you know, Clerks, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back, Mallrats, I really like it. And Mallrats is pretty good. It's you know, not looked at with such a kind eye by most people today, but I tend to enjoy it a lot. Anyway, yeah, Stan Lee had a cameo in that movie. Not really a cameo, it was more of a part, really, but anyway, Stan Lee was in Mallrats, and that movie came out in the mid-90s. So seeing, you know, Stan Lee reading the script to Mallrats was really cool, and it made Kevin Smith cry. I saw that on Twitter, and I was like, that's so sweet. Poor Kevin Smith. What a guy. What a legend. So anyway, Captain Marvel goes to this planet to stop to rescue her friend from the Skrull. Except it turns out that her friend was just a Skrull in disguise. I don't know if it was like all along, or if he just turned into one, or if the Skrull had just assumed his form or something. But anyway, this all leads to Captain Marvel being captured and putting into this big old elaborate torture chamber, then escaping and crash landing onto Earth inside of a Blockbuster Video. If you've seen the trailer, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, she breaks. I don't know if she breaks into a Radio Shack. She steals some stuff from a Radio Shack, and using these miscellaneous cables and wires and things from Radio Shack, she's able to hack a payphone to connect to like her spaceship and talk to the one actor. What's his name? I don't even know. I don't bother to look it up. But anyway, that doesn't make any sense. Granted, it's a comic book movie. I don't know why I'm looking for sense in a comic book movie, but I digress. It's around here that she meets Nick Fury, and the CG for Nick Fury, like de-aging Nick Fury, is really good, actually. They did an outstanding job with that, which is strange because compared to the rest of the movie, I don't... Did they just, like, spend all of the money on de-aging Sam Jackson? Or, like, I don't know what's going on there, you know? But I guess that's not the point that I'm trying to get at. I guess the point that I'm trying to get at here is she meets Nick Fury, and she goes with Nick Fury to this bar out in the middle of the desert to talk about the Skrull and this aircraft that she recognizes because she thinks that she had a life on Earth. I think right out of the gate, I should say that Brie Larson does not execute this character well at all. I don't know shit about the comics. I don't read comics. But a lot of her performance in this movie was just very uncharismatic and very bland. And I hope that it's something that can be improved in Avengers Endgame, because she was real bad in this movie, which is something that I did not expect, because I tend to like Brie Larson in a lot of other things. She was great in Scott Pilgrim and Kong Skull Island, which I didn't expect. She's a pretty charismatic gal, and her character in this movie just did not work at all. And I don't know what went wrong, but nonetheless, it still went wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they go to this bar, and she recognizes an aircraft, and Nick Fury knows where that photo of the aircraft was taken. So he takes her to these like secret SHIELD headquarters, and that's where they meet Goose, and Goose the cat. It's one of the most poorly set up jokes of all time. So Fury comes up. They're like walking through this underground corridor with a ton of files in it. And they find this little cat named Goose. And Nick Fury's in love with the cat named Goose. And the whole joke throughout the movie is that the aliens, the Skrull, are afraid of the cat. They're like, that's not a cat. What the hell is a cat? That's not whatever a cat is. That's a spooky space demon. And it's like, oh, haha, get it? They think it's something different, but it's just a little kitty. And it's like, oh, just from that very obvious setup, that it's not just a little kitty. And eventually it's revealed that, surprise, it's not just a little kitty. And it's like this big old tentacle monster thing. Granted, it was a little funny. It elicited a bit of a reaction out of the rest of the theater. And because the way that the cat is, the way that the space demon cat thing is revealed is the cat and Fury are like cornered in a hallway. No, they have the Tesseract, and the cat just, a bunch of tentacles come out of the cat's mouth and just swallow the Tesseract whole. And then Nick and Brie Larson are, they stare at each other for a good 5 minutes, and they give you plenty of silence for the audience to wear off all of that laughter, because people in the audience were dying, they were clapping, they were wild. And then the cat's spooky space demon powers are exposed again later in the movie, when they are cornered in a hallway and the cat's tentacles come out and just swallow everybody. So anyway, Brie Larson, I keep on forgetting her name, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, and Fury are cornered in this underground facility by Ben Mendelsohn, who is really a spooky Skrull. And so Nick Fury and Brie Larson go to this lady's home, who Larson knew in her past life on Earth, to talk to her about going to the lady in the Supreme Intelligence's lab up in space to end the war with the Skrulls and whatever the hell Captain Marvel's race is called. This, in hindsight, this plot line is pretty muddled and pretty confusing. But anyways, this black lady who is Captain Marvel's sidekick says no, because she has a daughter, and the daughter swears, and it's funny because she's a little girl. The child actor was really bad in this movie. Spoiler alert. Did not like her at all. So anyway, they say, come on, you have to do it. You have to do it. You gotta help me. And she's like, all right, fine. And her daughter's like, come on, you gotta do it. And she's like, I already said fine. So they go ahead and they rework this. Oh, sorry, the Skrull find Captain Marvel and all of her friends at this lady's house. And so they tell her, it's like, hey, don't worry, we're good Skrulls. It turns out that your race, your little friends, are the bad guys, and we were the good guys all along. And so they just believe them on a whim, and then the Skrull people rework this Earthbound aircraft into a spacecraft overnight. I don't know, do they just carry a tackle box of space equipment with them? Who knows? I don't care. But anyway, and then they use this spacecraft to go up to the ladies' lair lab thing up in space, so that way they can find this like energy reactor that will somehow end. Oh yeah, it's an energy reactor to give the Skrulls a new home. It's gonna give them enough power to go away to a new home, so that way they don't have to be at war anymore. And so, they go to the lair and they find the whole energy source or whatever. And as they're leaving, Captain Marvel's people show up and they're like, no, you can't do that. That's against the rules. That's not how the Force works. And they have a fight, and there's a bit of space battling. There's a big old fight in the desert. This whole movie felt like it was like 30 minutes long. It felt like a Saturday morning cartoon, to be honest. And before you know it, the movie's over. Brie Larson sends her little boyfriend back into space with the message saying, "Don't mess with me," and then she stays with Nick Fury and runs into the sunset, and then it ends. Now, there's a lot here. The post-credit scenes are pretty entertaining. There's a tease for Endgame, which is, vague and confusing, but nonetheless, I'm still excited for Endgame because I loved Infinity War and I love the Russos. So yeah, I can't wait for that. But anyway, the second post-credit scene is the little cat, Goose, in Nick Fury's office, and this is after Nick Fury is dead, I suppose. And the cat just vomits up the Tesseract out of nowhere. So like, it's a little confusing because that's supposedly after the snap, right? So the cat vomits up the Tesseract, but if that's the case, has the Tesseract been in Goose for like the 20 or 30 years that Fury has had Goose? Also, how is Goose 30 years old? Well, I guess it's not really a cat, it's a space demon. But does that post-credit scene just take place like before the Avengers? Because that'd be a little strange. So I'm guessing that it was just, a cheap little joke thrown around in a writer's room, because this movie has like 5 screenwriters, and they're just like, hey, we should have this little post-credit scene where Goose vomits up the Tesseract. It'd be funny. And they're like, okay, put it in the script. And they didn't really think about how much that messes with the timeline. Granted, it was just a little throwaway scene, and the movie would literally be no different without it. But it was still a ha-ha funny nonetheless. So, yeah, I suppose that's all that I have to say about Captain Marvel. It was pretty bland all around, It's, like I said at the beginning, it was nothing offensive. It was nothing too extreme for my tastes. It was nothing too challenging. It was just nothing. And I really would have hoped for something more, I guess, full of depth. I wanted a character with depth. And I guess I shouldn't be running to Marvel origin stories for such a character, but here we are. But at the end of the day, I don't care if it was good or bad, because I literally only watched it for the 2-minute post-credit scene for Avengers Endgame. And you know what? It was pretty good for 2.5 hours of advertisements just to watch a 2-minute clip for Avengers Endgame. And you know what? That's about the biggest compliment I can give this movie. It is 2.5 hours of advertisements for a 2-minute clip of Avengers Endgame. I paid the price of admission for 2 minutes of Avengers Endgame. And, granted, I was entertained. I was never bored. But that said, it's nothing special. It is, you could, if you want context to Endgame, you can just look up the post-credit scene online and then skip the movie altogether, and it would literally make no difference. If you're looking for something to put on while you clean your house, then it's a perfect movie for you. If I were to put this on a scale, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 10, 4.5 out of 10. Not quite a 5, not quite a 4. But yeah, it was just blech, Brie Larson as Captain Marvel makes a very flat, uncharismatic character, and it was honestly kind of disappointing. Nick Fury, Sam Jackson is great. Ben Mendelsohn does a okay job, I suppose. The child actor sucks, and so does her mom. And yeah, this is a bit of a downer review of the movie, but here we are, nonetheless. Anyway, I suppose that'll be my review for Captain Marvel. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you all. We'll see you all later.